Hello and welcome. I'm your host, Father Don Dahl. Join us as we take a look at the Jesuits in the new millennium. The Society of Jesus is one of the largest religious orders in the Catholic Church. Our mission, the service of faith and the promotion of justice. Working with Elizabeth O'Keefe and Ralph Behrens, we set out to discover how Jesuits were living out their mission. From El Salvador to India to South Dakota, we found Jesuits and their colleagues living out their faith and creatively adapting it to the communities that they serve. But first, it's helpful to understand the man who founded the Society of Jesus, Ignatius of Loyola. His vision is as contemporary and challenging today as it was in the 16th century. Beginning in Spain, we take a journey through his life with Jesuit historian Father Thomas Lucas.
We're standing on the steps of the Basilica of St. Ignatius in a remote valley in northern Spain. In order to understand this place and the energy that built it, we need to leave the noise of modern traffic behind. We need to go back in time and memory and imagination. Ignatius the Pilgrim, mystic and master of the practical, died on the morning of July 31st, 1556. He was 65 years old. His practical mysticism, a vision of finding and serving God in all things and all people, spread across the globe in schools, missions, social and pastoral centers, and retreat work. Subsequent generations of Jesuits and benefactors used the full panoply of Baroque culture to glorify his memory. Jesuit artist Andrea Pozzo designed him a tomb that rivals any of the pharaohs. Ignatius would have hated it. At the end of the 17th century, Andrea Pozzo's work in Rome and Carlo Fontana's basilica here at Loyola were high watermarks in Jesuit self-esteem and triumphalism. We need to deconstruct this space, to lift off Carlo Fontana's brilliant sugar bowl of a dome and set it aside, to disassemble this fortress of religion which has stood as the Jesuits' headquarters in northern Spain for centuries, and stand before the citadel of Loyola. This citadel is a microcosm of feudal Spain. Its exquisite, richly ornamented family chapel affirms the importance of the church and its devotions in family life. But the ground floor armory, with its great iron door and gun ports, testifies to the powerful violence inherent in the feudal world. Here we can imagine the 8 sons of Loyola playing with wooden swords and dreaming their first dreams of heroic deeds. Later, Inigo would describe himself during this period. He was given over to the vanities of the world and took a special delight in the exercise of arms, with a great and vain desire of winning fame. In May of 1521, Inigo participated in the Spanish defense of the city of Pamplona against French invaders. In the course of that battle, his right leg was shattered with a cannonball. Recognizing his valor, the French treated him on the battlefield and allowed his friends to carry him home here to the castle of Loyola. Here, in this the place of his birth, he began a recovery that was long, painful, and full of surprises. In a crucible of pain, boredom, disillusionment bordering on despair, something terrible and wonderful happened to the broken courtier. Like Augustine a millennium before, he picked up a book and started to read. His only companions during long, silent hours in the upper room were a life of Christ and a book of the lives of the saints. Staring out his windows into the misty hillsides, he daydreamed, of course, dreamed of the deeds he'd have to do and the sonnets he'd have to write to capture the heart and hand of a great lady. But as he read the only books he had at hand, other dreams intruded, dreams of great deeds to be done for an eternal king, deeds of the great champions, the saints, that he might emulate and even surpass in heroic virtue. he started to listen to his experience, to listen to his heart. His experience was clear, and he recognized it and named it. This pattern of listening to experience, this pattern of discernment became the pattern of his life. Strengthened by a vision of the Virgin and her child, and by the dreams he dreamt, he set forth on his pilgrim way and never looked back. He stopped at the famous sanctuary of Our Lady of Montserrat, nestled in a craggy mountainside outside the city of Barcelona. After 3 days of prayer and scrutiny, he made his general confession to a Benedictine monk. Then, giving his rich clothes to a beggar and donning a robe of sackcloth and following the prescribed rituals of knighthood, he made an all-night vigil before the Lady of Montserrat, leaving his sword on the altar there. At first, as Inigo looked back on his recent experiences, he bathed in the afterglow of their high drama and import. How could he ever adequately repent for the sins of his boisterous life at court? Indeed, his self-examination became a kind of neurotic scrupulosity. His doubts and despair drove him to the brink of suicide. His life lay shattered before him in pieces like light fragmented flashing on the water. Then one day, gazing at the river Cardoner, he understood. He was given not a vision with images, but a moment of clear and focused understanding. He named his experience, as mystics have always named it, enlightenment. Enlightenment so great, he said, that everything seemed new. This experience literally turned him inside out. It gave him courage to look to the present and to the future, not just to the past, and freed him from his paralyzing self-absorption. Inigo analyzed his experiences and began to frame those experiences in words. Those words evolved into the little book of the spiritual exercises, a guidebook for leading a willing soul through a month of intense prayer and reflection. Drawn by Ignatius's magnetic personality and his transparent goodness, he gathered more companions. The group, who had grown to 10 in number, made their way to Rome in 1537. They called themselves the Companions of Jesus. The Companions took Rome by storm, preaching in the piazza and the churches, teaching in the papal university, working in hospices and hospitals, all the while running a soup kitchen out of their rented rooms. A year later, in 1540, the existence of the Society of Jesus was formally confirmed by the Holy See. Jesuits, in essence, made a vow of mobility, promising to go wherever the need was greatest. Because they were so well-educated and articulate, lay people soon asked the Jesuits to train their sons, and bishops asked them to train their seminarians. In the decade before Ignatius's death in 1556, the Society opened 70 colleges and seminaries in Europe and around the world, an incredible flowering of educational institutions, the likes of which the world had never seen. Ignatius talked to everybody, to the Pope and to the cardinals and to the prostitutes across the street. And those conversations flowed into a bewildering variety of urban ministries. Ignatius the Pilgrim became Ignatius the Administrator, Ignatius the Writer. He completed 2 crucial works: his spiritual exercises begun so long before, and the Jesuit Constitutions, a rich and nuanced document which institutionalized his spiritual vision and has brought it intact to Jesuits 450 years later. Along with his companion Francis Xavier, he was canonized in 1622. A century after its foundations, his society numbered 15,000 in almost 900 institutions. Yet, scarcely a century later, the society no longer existed, having been suppressed by the Pope himself. Now, at the beginning of the 21st century, A restored and humbler society of Jesus is seeking to set aside its former triumphalism and to return to the spirituality of the complex and holy man who was born here at Loyola. It seeks to emulate him in his prayerfulness and his poverty, in his commitment to the service of the poor and the powerless, to continue his conversation with the world and culture and religion, to continue to speak his saving word of hope, which is finally the glory of God.